Hello Year 7 and welcome back. This is week 3 forces and speed lesson 2. So we've already had the first part of this topic, forces and speed, and this time we'll be concentrating more on the speed part of it rather than the forces like last lesson. So you can find these facts in your fact book. These are the ones I asked you to learn at the end of the last lesson. So there's 5 facts that you need to be able to take away from this lesson. So the first one is how you calculate speed using the formula speed equals distance divided by time. What the unit for speed is, and that's meters per second. What friction is, so it's the contact between two surfaces and they resist the movement over one another. Friction is useful for braking and stopping a car tyre from skidding, so you need to know useful things for friction, and what streamlining actually is, and that reduces air resistance. So let's have a look. As usual, we've got a starter with 4 questions. It's not only asking you ones on the most previous lessons, it's asking you from the very first lesson, and I'm going to continue to do that just to make sure that you're learning those facts and you're not just learning the most recent ones. So you can see the 4 questions on the screen. What is chromatography used for? What are the 3 states of matter? What are the 2 different types of forces? And what is the unit for speed? So I will give you 4 minutes, so a minute per question, and then we will go through them. So pause the video and have a go. Okay, so chromatography is used to separate dyes into colours. If you've given a specific example as to what it's used for, so crime scene investigations, forgery, if you've given those, that's absolutely fine. Well done for remembering that. What are the 3 states of matter? They are solid, liquid and gas. 2 different types of forces, contact and non-contact. If you put push and pull, that is also fine, but just try and push yourselves to remember that extra bit of knowledge of contact and non-contact. And the unit for speed is actually one of the facts that I asked you to learn for this lesson, which is meters per second. So we're going to have a little bit more depth of look at speed. So the first one is speed is a measure of how far something travels in a particular time. So how quickly you go in a car or how quickly you go on a bike to your destination is speed. So as you can see, the sprinters, they're moving 10 metres every second, so their speed would be 10 metres per second. You've got a Formula 1 car as well in the example there. You can see it moving around. Now that's travelling at a faster speed of 360 kilometres in 1 hour if it maintained the speed that it's currently at in that video clip. So the speed could either be 360 kilometres an hour or 100 metres per second. Now as you can see, there's different units there. Now for speed there can be different units. There's not just one typical unit, it can be other units as well. But the one that you need to make sure that you understand is meters per second. Another one that's travelling a little bit faster is the jet, and that is a super jet. So that travels at 1,200 kilometres an hour or 330 metres per second. You've got light from a laser as well. Now that can also be measured how fast that's travelling, and that's 300 million metres per second. So that is really, really quick. Okay, so just as a little bit of a demonstration of understanding the units for speed, like I said, we can use different kind of ones. So what I need you to do, you've got a list there of units. What I need you to do is put them into the correct column. If you're not sure on all of them, have a go at some of them. There's some that you might know. Don't worry if you can't fill it all in, we'll be going through it in a minute. So just pause the video and we'll go through it. So we've got the following. We've got distance, you should have centimetres, kilometres, metres and millimetres. You can see that they've all got something in common, they've all got a metre kind of ending. You've got time, seconds and hours, and you've got your speed, so mixing together the distance and time, you could have metres per second, kilometres per hour, centimetres per second and millimetres per second as well. So well done if you managed to get those, well done if you managed to get a few in the correct columns. Don't worry if you got any wrong, it's all about the learning process and making sure that you are going back over the knowledge that you've already been taught. So calculating speed. So to find the speed, you need that formula of speed equals distance divided by time. So we've put it into a triangle for you just in case it's easier, because I know some of you prefer to use that. If you were asked to calculate speed, or you were asked to calculate distance, or you're asked to calculate time, you can use this formula triangle to help you. So you just cover the one or point to the one that you need to find out, and the other two will tell you what you need to do with them. Okay, so we've looked at the formula for speed, now we're going to look at friction. And as one of the facts says, it's two surfaces that resist the movement over one another. So if you try and rub your hands together, it's quite difficult, you really have to push, and it's the resisting of each palm on the top of each other. So it's a force that will actually grip the object. So if you apply more force, it's going to be harder for the object to be pushed. So if you apply more force to your hand, it's actually harder. And it's a force, so it is measured in what? That's correct, it is in newtons. So hopefully you all remembered that forces are measured in newtons. So moving on to the next one, which is uses of friction. Now you can see from those three pictures there that's given you a little bit of a hint as to where friction is useful. Now if we didn't have friction in some circumstances, it would be pretty dangerous. So it can be useful between shoes and floor, so it stops us from slipping over. Between tyres and road, so it stops the cars from skidding. Now that's a really important one. If you don't brake soon enough, friction can't happen, so you end up crashing. Between brakes and wheels, so it helps bikes and cars to slow down. And just as a little bit of extra information, frictional forces are smaller on smooth surfaces than on rougher. So that's the reason you can slide on ice. Whereas if it's rough on concrete, it's a rougher surface, so it would be a bigger frictional force, so it's actually harder to skid. And one of the last facts you need to make sure that you understand is streamlining. Now there'll be a lot of you that understand what streamlining is. You'll know that it makes cyclists go faster, but some of you might not be aware that actually vehicles are getting more and more streamlined to make it more efficient. So it reduces air resistance and helps them to cycle faster in the term of cyclists. Wearing specialist equipment to allow air to flow over the cyclist more easily, so they wear helmets that are pointed towards the back. You've got wheels instead of the spokes, as you can see on the diagram. They will also bend down closer to the handlebars, so they're not creating somewhere where the air particles can hit. And also what I mentioned before about modern vehicles. Now they reduce air resistance, and it actually allows them to travel further on the same amount of fuel. Now what I would like you to do, if you want to go away and research and find out some extra information, is what other things are streamlined. So there'll be plenty of different things. I've given you cyclists and modern vehicles. Is there anything else that is streamlined to help it move faster or more efficiently? And that is the end of this lesson. So next week we'll be looking at the human body, and the facts that you will need to know are the following, and they are found in your fact book as well. So it's the organisation. It begins with a cell and ends with an organism. An example of an organ system is a circulatory system. The functions of a skeleton are support, protect, movement and make red blood cells, and the nervous system consists of the brain, nerves and spinal cord. They are the 4 facts that you need to know for next lesson. So take your time, learn those, but don't forget about the other facts that you've learned also. Again, I'll be testing you on those other facts, so don't forget about them. Have fun, I will see you next lesson.